Hi guys, my name is Marcus, and in this video I would like to share 10 tips with you that improve your experience with RAIDBORN. Let's start with tip number 1, and that is to buy a new weapon early in the game. With early in the game I mean basically right after you finished the tutorial level. Go to the city, sell your old gear, that's very important because then you have a little bit more start gold, and then try to get a new weapon if possible. This will make the start of the game just a little bit easier, because otherwise if you're using the tutorial weapon in your first dungeons you will probably have a hard time. And also, this club really isn't the most beautiful weapon. Tip number 2 is to buy lockpicks. I know it sounds obvious, but especially when you're starting out the game, you have enough lockpicks, but you will run out of them quickly, so it makes sense to always make sure you have enough lockpicks by visiting the consumables trader in the city. Let's talk about tip number 3, and that is about stamina. Stamina is very important in the game and required for a lot of actions, so it makes sense to use stamina potions. There are a lot of games where stamina potions are not really important. In RAIDBORN they are, so it makes sense to put them on a quick slot and use them regularly. By the way, a little side note here, it also makes a lot of sense to use a stamina essence every now and then. It can be easily forgotten about that there is, another type of potion, but as a matter of fact it's actually pretty powerful, because you can just drink the stamina essence and basically have no problems with stamina for a certain number of seconds. Let's talk about tip number 4, and that is to experiment with your skill tree. The skill tree in RAIDBORN is very open and allows you to experiment with the skills from the 4 different subclasses: Defender, Knight, Barbarian and Rogue. And you can come up with some very fun or powerful skill combinations. For example, you could level the Rage mode while at the same time leveling up your stealth damage, then sneak behind enemies, activate your Rage mode and deal devastating damage, because you have to combine damage from the Rage mode and the stealth damage multiplier. Okay, let's talk about tip number 5. And that is to not forget to use your coin pouches and reference books in your inventory, because the coin pouches give you some gold while the reference books give you some XP, so it can be a nice added bonus, so just don't forget to use them. By the way, there are also mystery cubes and skill books in the game, so make sure to check your inventory every now and then to use them. Next is tip number 6, and that is how to deal with enemies that deal a lot of damage. For example, there's an enemy class called Berserker, which can go into Rage mode, and while in Rage mode is dealing a lot of damage. So the trick here is to use your parry, because if you parry an enemy, first of all his attack gets stopped, you get no damage, and you can do a counter attack. So parry really is the key when dealing with enemies that deal a lot of damage. Next is tip number 7, and that is that you can lure enemies at a certain location when shooting an arrow with your bow, because enemies will try to investigate the noise the arrow makes when you shoot it somewhere. This is especially helpful in the castle levels where undead, are rising from the ground or waking from the dead, because you can hardly see them. But if you shoot somewhere with your bow, then they will wake up and investigate the noise. And this will help you to see where the enemies are, and generally can be useful for stealth characters. Tip number 8 is to use the kick feature correctly and to your advantage. First of all, you need to know that if you kick an enemy, he will get stunned from time to time. If you kick a stunned enemy, he will fall to the ground. If an enemy is in front of a spike trap and you kick him into the spike trap while he's stunned, he will fall into the spike trap and get immediately killed. Please note that there is no damage if you're trying to push enemies into spike traps. This may change later on because people have get confused by this, but for the moment you can only deal damage or kill them if you kick them into a spike trap, making them fall over. Tip number 9 is to fully charge your bow, because it makes a big difference in damage. there is this indication with those two white bars that shows you how much your bow is charged. It makes sense to fully charge your shots for maximum damage. And the last tip is to play around with the game settings, especially the difficulty and the hit pause setting. With the difficulty, you can do quite some interesting things. For example, if you like combat to be a little bit faster and more intense, you can increase the enemy dealt damage and reduce enemy health. Then enemies will have less health, you will kill them more quickly, but they will also kill you more quickly. So if that's the kind of experience you want, check out the game settings, play around with the difficulty setting. It can make quite a difference. The next feature is the hit pause setting, which I added there. I never really was sure if that's something that's cool or not, so I just made it a setting and you can try it out. Just enable it and see what you think of it. It basically adds a small pause when you hit an enemy to make it feel a little bit more heavy and to give you, the feeling that impacts are a little bit more heavy. Just try it out and you will know what I mean. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. And I really hope you enjoy playing RAIDBORN and that those tips helped you or will help you to improve your experience with the game. I'm really excited to deliver more content for the game. Stay tuned and stay cool. See you next time.